Controlling Your Fear from the Better Speaker Series from Angie Nett. Angie, past district director for District 12, has been an active Toastmaster for 15 years this month. She is currently serving as the District 12's past district governor director liaison. So she tells all us past district governors what to do. My words, not hers. Angie also currently serves on the board of the Inland Empire SHRM. I'm going to leave that up to her to explain as the communication chair. She is the director of human resources at Sorensen Engineering and local manufacturing of microtechnology solutions. In her work at Sorensen Engineering, she has traditionally spent much of her time recruiting, which included visiting schools and speaking to young people in hopes of inspiring them to consider a career in manufacturing or engineering. However, in recent months, many of these events have been canceled or postponed due to the COVID-19 restrictions. Angie is currently focused on all aspects of information and management issues related to COVID-19 in the workplace. Our speaker, Angie Nett, past district governor, and you are on, Angie.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters, and I'm unsure if we have any guests, but welcome. Are you feeling a bit more anxious these days? A little fearful? We have much to worry about right now, and that's why I mentioned to Tom in my introduction that I spend a lot of time with all of these COVID-19 restrictions, because what I find is that a lot of people are very fearful. They're more anxious than they had ever been before. And that's how I came to choose the Controlling Your Fear module out of the Better Speakers series. We have a lot to worry about right now. We're worried about coronavirus, our jobs, as Dominique mentioned, our businesses that are closed, civil unrest, and more. And all this anxiety around made me think we could probably learn a few techniques that we have for speakers to help us in our personal lives or work lives as well. So the techniques we're going to learn tonight help us control our fear as a speaker. But as I said, can help us anytime when we're feeling a little bit anxious. Now, both an experienced speaker and a beginning speaker can get nervous about giving a speech. However, an experienced speaker knows how to control these nerves to possibly even enhance the speech. By understanding the causes of the symptoms of the fear, a speaker can harness that negative emotion, that negative energy, and use it for a more positive outcome. A speaker can appear more confident in front of an audience by applying various methods and techniques for relaxation. So first, let's talk about what some of those anxiety triggers could be. One could be new and unknown situations. New experiences can cause us to be a bit stressed. Our inability to anticipate any unforeseen causes. We don't know what's coming about, so we get a little bit anxious. Another anxiety trigger could be a risk of failure. We dream of success and victory. Some of us even see ourselves walking on the world championship of public speaking stage. And when we think about this, we can become nervous, a little bit anxious. Then there's the potential for appearing foolish. No one wants to appear foolish. We don't want to feel like we're being foolish, but that possibility of embarrassment can cause great fear and anxiety. Then there's also the thought that we really want to engage our audience, and a fear of not connecting with our audience or just being boring can cause a little bit of anxiety. Did I put the right things in my speech? Will I be able to connect? Do they really want to hear this? That can cause a little bit of apprehension and worry on our part as a speaker. So I've given you a few ideas on triggers. But without everybody shouting at once, I'd like to know if there's someone else out there that has another trigger. If you just raise your hand, I'll call upon you. If you can think of some other triggers that really make you anxious before you speak. Anyone? I couldn't possibly have hit them all. Marilyn.
Did I rehearse enough?
Did you rehearse enough? Yeah, for sure. We all get so busy, and sometimes we don't rehearse enough, and then that makes us a little bit more fearful. Anyone else have another idea? Charles.
Doing what you and I used to do a long time ago, preparing for the speech on the way to the speech and not really preparing beforehand.
Yeah. It's kind of off the cuff, makes us more nervous, doesn't it? Table topics makes me much more nervous than when I have a prepared speech. Dominique, you had another idea.
If there's someone special or extra important in the audience that I need to impress or that I'm concerned about choking in front of, that could make me extra nervous.
Absolutely. You bring up a good point. I get more nervous when I have a family member there than I do if I'm talking to 1,000 strangers. If my mom and my sister and my brother are there, I'm a wreck. So you do. You have these special people in the audience that can make you a little bit nervous. Anyone else? I thought I saw Richard.
Yes, the audience doesn't get my humor or doesn't laugh.
That kind of goes with the engagement, doesn't it? Oh, maybe they won't get my kind of humor. It is tough when you fear that you're going to fall flat, right? Tom had another idea.
Really quick, and it doesn't apply to anyone in our audience probably, but I think back to high school when I was particularly scared to give speeches, but might be there are members of the opposite sex that it fits into your category, but someone you don't want to embarrass yourself in front of on the opposite sex.
That's true. That's true. Okay, well, when we get into a situation that causes anxiety, the body responds by increasing the flow of adrenaline. And this adrenaline will cause our heart to beat a little bit faster. Extra blood flow to the brain and our muscles. And this rush will provide us some energy. It also helps us to respond a little bit more quickly when we have this extra adrenaline. I find that I like the extra adrenaline because I know I'm going to be excited, a little bit more enthusiastic for my speech. But there can be some undesirable effects or little side effects to this extra adrenaline, such as increased heart rate, butterflies in your stomach. We talk about trying to get those butterflies in formation, but I just don't like butterflies, so I want them gone. Some people can shake. You have those uncontrollable shakes and lightheadedness or dizziness. So these are things that we don't want to manifest when we have that high adrenaline rush. So we really want to learn how to manage our anxiety, especially before a speech. And when I was working on this module, I thought of so many world champions that have given us little tidbits on managing anxiety, but I couldn't decide which ones to throw in. So I'll just give you a couple that I came to my head right away. And that was Ryan Avery mentioned, use that extra energy by standing in the back of the room and rushing up to the stage. And you burn a little bit of that energy and you're ready to go, you're excited, your audience is ready. So that's one idea. And it is common for all of us as speakers to be concerned about our performance. I mean, that's why we're in Toastmasters. We want to get better, right? And we practice, and we're going to have some feedback later, and this makes us nervous, but we want to learn to use that energy. So managing it is key. And there's 3 areas that Toastmasters suggests as major areas to help us manage our anxiety. And one of them was mentioned earlier. Marilyn mentioned when we haven't practiced enough. So experience is number 1. Studies show that one of the best methods for reducing our anxiety is practice. And repeatedly giving speeches reduces our fear and helps us build confidence. And after we speak a few times, we begin to put that anxiety into perspective. And we learn what techniques or how often we have to practice to help us. It's different for everyone. I may need to practice 25 times before I feel comfortable, and Tom Jameson may need to practice twice. But you'll learn who you are, how you are, but some ideas for practicing. You could practice in front of the mirror. You could practice in front of your family and friends. And you could deliver speeches to other clubs. Right now, with all of our clubs being on Zoom, it's so much easier for you to get a little practice in. Ask another club if you can be a guest speaker. Volunteer as a QS, as Melissa and Tom asked us to, and speak to another club. That'll get some more practice. You can practice your speech to your dog, your cat. You could find some other organizations to practice. Perhaps you have a big presentation to give at work. You could practice somewhere else where they may need that information as well. I'm curious if anyone, without shouting, raise your hand, has other ways where they can get more experience to help them with their speeches. If you just raise your hand, let me know if you have some other little trick of the trade to get some experience in before you speak. Anyone? To look at the other page. I don't see
Roxanne
anyone.
has her hand up. Roxanne.
Roxanne, thank you, Roxanne. I was switching to the other page, missed you.
One thing I like to do is I go walking with a couple of girlfriends, and if I have a part of a speech, typically a story that I want to try out, I just tell it to them in the course. I don't say, let me tell you a story or practice it. I just do it.
Yeah.
Then if they respond with, now I didn't understand this or that, then I know that there's something I've got to go back and fix. But
yeah,
while I'm walking along the way with a friend.
That's a great idea. It's a great idea. Sometimes I tell stories to my coworkers, and like you said, if they get it, if they laugh where I expected a laugh, then I know it's good. If they didn't understand a single thing I said and I had to explain it for the next 15 minutes, then that's not a good story. Any other suggestions on getting more experience? Yes, Alipio.
Yeah, you heard from my presentation, I was participating in an online water fasting forum. So I was giving Zoom presentations on this material to newbies. So that's how I've been getting some experience that way. So if there's a group, for example, I'm also a member of a writers group, and they may be asking me to also give a repeat of this presentation to them. So there you go.
Very good. Very good. I was going to mention that we could give speeches to other organizations, but now that we're not in-person speaking, it might be a little bit more difficult, but you could check out if a Lions Club or the Rotary Club wants you to give a Zoom speech. I'm sure they're still looking for speakers. Richard.
Angie, one thing I've found to be helpful is recording my speech and then listening to it in the car, or usually in the car, driving to work or driving around.
Very good. You remind me of something I learned years and years ago when I was taking voice lessons. And that is, we hear this phrase all the time, practice makes perfect. Well, you could be perfectly practicing wrong. So practice makes permanent. You want to practice and change. You want to make all those changes. So when you record, you hear where your mistakes may have been, or where you sounded a little funny, where the story didn't hit right. And then when you make changes, each time you practice, it's a little bit different. And then you can get that perfect speech, or at least the one you planned on giving. I think Dominique had her hand up.
Richard stole mine. I was going to say video and watch yourself with a critical eye. It's incredibly painful, but I
It
always
is.
thank myself later because I see all the, do I really touch my hair that much? Do I really?
Yeah.
It's just all the little things that you don't know you do, and you see yourself do them, and the video doesn't lie.
That's actually a lot of what the Zoom speeches help us with, because we see ourselves a little bit more than when we're in person, right? Now, second method for managing anxiety is visualization. Now, research shows that vividly imagined events are recorded as memories in our brain and our central nervous system. So if you vividly imagine, your brain really doesn't know the difference between a memory and an actual event. So you could visualize yourself giving this fantastic speech, and that it lends to the experience part as well, because you're visualizing this fantastic experience. And thought processes cause these physiological changes that affect our performance. So when we visualized how well we've done, we're probably more likely to do better. Imagine if you visualize or you think you're going to do horrible. Well, yeah, you're probably going to make those mistakes that you visualized. So you may want to practice some visualization. In fact, we're going to right now. So if you'll close your eyes and mentally walk yourself through this scenario. Vividly imagine each action, okay? You're introduced to an audience. Imagine that stage. Imagine the lectern. Imagine you're walking across the stage for the World Championship of Public Speaking. The audience is clapping. You walk up to the lectern with great posture, confidently, smiling at the people. Or in the days of Zoom meetings, you pull up your chair and look in the camera. Breathe deeply several times before you begin your speech. And go ahead and breathe deeply now. You speak clearly and firmly, and you're remembering all of the points of your speech. You don't make any mistakes in your visualization. You captivate your audience with your words, your gestures. Your gestures are perfect. Your vocal variety. You raise your voice where you're supposed to. You lower it. And when you finish, your audience roars, applauds in appreciation. And you repeat this and repeat this. And that will increase your confidence and reduce your anxiety. So visualization is another method. Anybody want to add anything to something like visualization? Do you do it? Do you practice it? Does it help you? Anyone want to speak to that? Dominique.
Well, Angie, if you can actually get to where you're going to be and see the actual venue and stand on the actual stage and feel what it feels like to be standing there weeks before you're actually going to be there, you can visualize it with far more accuracy so that by the time you really get there, it'll be true to your memories. If you're just picturing what it's like to be at the World Championships, but you've never been to that hotel or conference center or venue, it'll be different by the time you get there. So the closer to real that you can get, the better.
I appreciate you mentioning that. The flip side of that, I have completely visualized. I know the venue. I've been there 10 times before. And the week before, venue changes. And you're like, now what do I do? Your confidence just dropped and you've got to go there. You have to walk it. You have to do your Amy Cuddy power poses and do big movements and get that confidence in 10 minutes or less, right? So knowing your venue is huge. I agree with you. Thank you. Did somebody else have your hand up? Daryl Zeller.
Yes, I would just like to mention that when you're going to visualize, try to visualize something that you can really expect to happen, because most of us really could not visualize ourselves going across the stage for the world champion of public speaking because we're not have that quality. However, visualize us getting in front of the district and speaking with a couple hundred people there. I think all of us can visualize that very easily.
Well, you want to visualize for what you're trying to reduce your anxiety for, correct? If you have a speech next week, that's the one you want to be working on, not the one that's 6 months out. Yes, I totally agree. Thank you. Now, I asked for audience participation because I figured I could get a little bit more time since our qualified speaker wasn't here. And since I'm red, I'm going to take a little bit of time. Sorry, Marilyn and Tom. I probably should have asked. But the third area is relaxation. Because the mind and body are so connected, our feelings often affect us physically. As anxiety builds, so does our physical stress. Relaxing and using some breathing techniques alleviate some of this physical tension and calm the mind. You could do isometric exercises to increase the circulation and the flow of oxygen to the brain. You could try to feel where you're tense. Are you tense in your shoulders? Maybe you tighten and then relax your shoulders and tighten and relax your shoulders. Now I'm always stressed in my shoulders, and I think it's because I work at a desk and I just can't get over that. But you could do little things with your shoulders to get that tension out of them. That will help. You could stand and do some quick exercises or breathing, you know, with your arms over your head or to the side and some little exercises. Now, I don't go through all of that myself, especially if I'm in person and I'm, you know, next to 100 people over on the side at Speakers Bureau or something like that. But I do use breathing techniques, and I find that they help me even if I'm out in the world feeling a little bit anxious. And I'll tell you what I do. I breathe from the diaphragm. And if you don't know what that means, that's really breathing into your stomach. Do you remember when you were a kid and you used to try to breathe and make your stomach stick out? So you'd be like, right? You're breathing with your stomach instead of with your chest. When you breathe with your chest, it's a shallow breath. It's like, but when you breathe with your diaphragm, you can breathe deep. And what I do is I breathe into 4 counts, and then I hold it 4 counts, and then I release 4 counts. Now, some people will do it a little bit longer, but if you're not used to it, you may want to do the 4-4-4. It helps me before I give a speech because I get relaxed just enough. When I do an 8 count, I'm going to fall asleep. I do an 8 count when I'm laying in bed and I can't go to sleep, and then I'm out. About 2 of those. So I don't do those before a speech. You really can lower your heart rate if you practice some breathing techniques. Now, there's another benefit to really getting that deep breath using your diaphragm, and that's you'll be able to project more. Your voice will sound more resonant. There's so many other benefits. When I have not been breathing well, I get kind of that squeaky voice. And then it's hard to get out of it when you've started talking and you don't have enough air and you literally have to take a pause. And I suggest you do that. Take a pause, deep breath through the diaphragm, and exhale. And most likely your audience isn't even going to notice that you took that really deep breath. I think it was Craig Valentine that said, we amplify our nervousness on stage about 10 times more than the audience sees you. So those nerves, that shaking, you're noticing it much more than your audience. So go ahead and take that deep breath because you'll feel so much better just the next minute later. Now, even after practicing and mentally rehearsing your speech, it's still normal to feel a little bit nervous before your presentation. You want that adrenaline flowing, though. It helps you speak with a little bit more energy. And audiences, like I said a minute ago, are often unaware of your knees shaking or your hands shaking, whatever your particular nervous reaction is. Your heart pounding, maybe your palms are a little sweaty. They don't notice that. Just breathe deep, get your confidence back. Those butterflies will disappear. Your audience will be impressed at your confidence and listen to every word that you have to say. Mr. Toastmaster.